In a survival situation, one of the best ways to find water is to get to an overlook and try and spot a green belt, a long stretch of green, like it's following the path of water, a riparian zone like this one. So let's say you spot one and you get down here, and lo and behold, it's only a seasonal flow. There's nothing above ground, there's nothing flowing at all. So you may be thinking, can I make water from plants like this? The answer is yes, and I'm gonna show you how. Plant transpiration. So just like we humans sweat on hot days like this and we breathe out water vapor, similar processes happen with plants. So with just a little bit of knowledge and some preparation, we can use this in a survival emergency to get drinkable water. We'll need two things. First, we need to know the plant is not toxic. If we use a dangerous plant with this and we drink the water, we can poison ourselves very quickly. So here's a few tips. In riparian zones and green belts like this one, all across the northern hemisphere, from China all the way through the States, through England, through Europe, we have cottonwoods and willow trees like this one all throughout these green belts, and we can use these. In our evergreen forests, in most northern latitudes as well, we have trees like the pine tree and the cedar tree and the spruce tree, all of which can also be used. Now, in most places in the world, you can find some plant life like this, but of course, research plants in the area that you're going to make sure you're ready. Second, we'll need something to capture the water vapor in, and this is why we include a little bit of plastic in our survival kit. Now, if I'm going to a desert area where water is a really big deal, and getting into a water emergency can mean life or death very quickly, we can use a much bigger bag than this. We can grab a rolled up like clear trash bag, something much larger. For this demonstration, we're just gonna use a gallon Ziploc, so we don't hurt too much of the tree, but we can still show you exactly how it works. So what I'm gonna do now is fit as much of the live branch in the plastic bag. So I'm gonna take my time getting this bag on there, because I really want to make sure I don't poke any holes in it. Now here's a tip, this works a lot better in sunlight. So the end product should be kept in the sunlight. We want to do this in as much light as possible. Now if I need to get more vegetation in, I can easily strip some willow leaves off here. It won't produce quite as much water as if it was still attached to the live branch, but it can really help fill up our transpiration bag. So I don't want this just standing up like this, because the water can run down. So I need to cinch the bag and I need to bend it down so the water collects in the bag. Now there's a few things I can do now. So if I didn't have cordage, I could get a thin willow branch here. Such a useful tree. And I can use this to wrap the bag up, okay? But a technique like this works with a little bit of preparedness, right? So I do have some simple cordage that I'm gonna use. Now, I'm not gonna cut this cordage to length, because you never know if you might need a longer piece later. So I'm just gonna use the whole thing. Little survival tip there, never cut cordage if you don't have to. So I'm just now gonna give this a few wraps here. And then just a square knot. And just a square knot, really any knot will do. Granny knot, you know, just like the shoelaces. There, nice and tight. And you'll see on a hot day like this, we're getting water vapor already. We're gonna get a nice mouthful from just this little bit of vegetation. So now I'm gonna angle it down. And now we can get a small rock like this and we can put it in the branches that we're using, right? To hold it and weight it down. Or if it's not quite enough weight, not every place has real big rocks to use, I can tie off on this rock and bury it a little bit in the sand. That'll hold that branch from springing back up. So I have a tight shot of this. So I'm just gonna move these other branches out of the way to make sure it doesn't block my sunlight. So now we just find a nice spot in the shade and let nature work. Okay, so we've left our demonstration bag overnight, and look at this. I'm gonna go ahead, give it a shake, let all the water run down the bag from the leaves, and I'm gonna carefully cut the string away. I want to make sure I get all the water off the leaves when I do this. So this was just from a small amount of vegetation. Look at that. Okay, you ready? So this is willow water, so I guess if I have a headache, this should help. Now, I'm gonna drink this through my teeth. Delicious. It's almost a little sweet. Definitely has a bit of a medicinal taste from the willow, but this amount of water here, this could save your life. There's more than one way to extract water from vegetation. The method you see here is one of the most labor intensive, but well worth it if you succeed. Here is the solar still. Now in this demonstration, we're extracting water vapor from plant vegetation, but this can be used on salt water and to purify contaminated water as well. The evaporation and recondensing in heat will kill any bacteria, viruses, or protozoa in the water and evaporates off any mud. It leaves any mud and sand and debris and salts behind, right? And then collects in your vessel. Of course, you'll have to line the bottom with plastic for that one, so the water doesn't just drain through the hole, right? So instead of lining it with vegetation, you would line it with plastic. I'm gonna dig a small pit here in the sand. I'm gonna fill it with this green vegetation, cover it with this plastic, and evaporate the liquid from the green vegetation, which is gonna condense when it hits the plastic and drip down into a container that we're gonna place inside. This one is much more labor intensive than the other methods. You have to gather all the green vegetation that you need. Again, we have to make sure that it's nothing toxic. We have to make sure we know what this is. We're using the willow tree once again. If you're allergic to note to the viewer, if you're allergic to aspirin, you're gonna have to find something else, because willow is the source of the original source of aspirin. It has salicins and salicylic acid in it. So here's the way the solar still works. I'm going to be evaporating off the water content of this vegetation. Again, this is a non-toxic vegetation that I am not allergic to. And I'm going to be capturing it with the help of a little bit of plastic. Again, despite all the environmental impacts of having plastic, it is a good desert survival tool. So now that I have my pit dug enough to form a nice inverse cone here, I'm going to go ahead and place my vegetation inside. Again, this is a demonstration. I didn't want to cut too many branches, but if you really want to get a lot of water, add a significant amount. This is a really good way to get the water out of cactus as well. So if you're in a real desert survival situation and you have cactus, a lot of that flesh can be a little toxic. So you evaporate the water content off, and there you go. So I want as much sunlight hitting these leaves as possible. Now I need a collection vessel. So something really easy to carry, again, is a little Ziploc bag like this, but you can use your water bottle, a canteen cup, anything waterproof. So when I roll the edges down there, it allows it to form a bowl right in the center. Now what I'm gonna do is cover it with my plastic to form an inverse cone. And this is how you'll know if it's deep enough. If you didn't make the hole deep enough, when you get a nice cone, you'll already be hitting your vessel, which means you'll have to take this all out and make it deeper. But that's okay, don't let those things stop you. So I'm gonna trim this up, I'm gonna cover it, and you'll see the end product. So once I get it covered with plastic, I wanna pull it pretty tight. I don't have a lot of rocks in this area, so I'm burying the edges in sand to help. And now, I know you've probably seen drawings where they use a very small stone for this, but it's gonna heat up below this plastic so the UV light from the sun can go through the plastic, but once it does and it contacts the sand and the vegetation, it converts to infrared, which is heat, and the infrared can't pass through the plastic. This is a greenhouse effect, so it's going to heat up in here quick, and since the edges are sealed pretty good, it's going to pressurize and this will push up. Okay, so we need a pretty heavy rock for this, and we want to center it right over the middle of our receptacle. Okay, in a nice cone. So go ahead and get a shot of this. So here's a bit of a tip for you. Here's a nice piece of desert survival kit, or really for any working in the riparian. This is called a Hori Hori. It's a Japanese digging trowel, a gardening trowel, but it's a little extra firm, and it's made into a blade as well. So these serrated portions here can cut roots, and this blade here is a bit of a slicer and chopper. So when digging your pit or cutting your plastic, you have a nice lightweight piece to work with. A bit of a signal mirror as well. We have this centered just over our receptacle. So now the water vapor can be extracted from the vegetation, hit the plastic where it cools, okay, because the plastic is cooler on the outside than it is the inside. Then it will run down into our receptacle. So we just want to make sure that this is not touching the edges of our container. So when it drips down, it doesn't hit the outside of the container and run down. It goes on the inside. You could, whatever you could do to peek that out, right? The more round the stone, the better, as long as it forms a bit of a tip there over our receptacle. Now on a hot day like this, it's gonna work very fast, so we're gonna take off, film some other stuff for you, and let nature do its job. A great way to help identify willow is this long, slender, pointy, simple pinnate leaf. So you see the single vein going down the middle and just the little dashes going down the sides. Now, of course, it'll be generally growing in large runs in riparians. These willow runs can go on for dozens of miles along riparians. And it has the nice green bark that peels off in strips. Remember, only use plants you're sure of. Okay, now I'm gonna take apart this still and go for the big reveal. I wanna get all these drops here running down before I remove the sheet. I want all this to wind up in my vessel here. As much of that as possible. And then just take it slow so you don't get too much water. Whew. Don't get any sanding or water. And now this is going to release a lot of heat when you lift this, so whew, it's like an oven.
Recording.
Okay. You see this? So here's our bag. Now this came out much more clear than the water from the transpiration bag. You can see the leaves here from being left overnight we've got just about all the moisture out of them. So now here's for the big reveal. Not too hot. Not very much flavor to it, but I do taste the willow a bit. Now again, these are small examples that produce quite a bit of water. So you really can do just about anything with these plants out here. In a survival situation, we could set up larger and more transpiration bags. We can set up larger and more distillation solar stills. An incredible technique to use with incredible wildlife. So I've already drank some, but here's the water from the still. Here's the water from the transpiration. You can see the transpiration's much darker. We got a lot more of what's inside the plant, right? That's why we say with both of these techniques, you want to make sure that you know the species you're using, and you know it's something that's not toxic, because you're getting a lot of the plant in with these. But this could be a truly life-saving technique. Altogether about a liter from both, but you can get gallons in a day.